and with me, as usual, are my esteemed panel. I'll begin with the lady. She is Aya Fubara Eneli Esquire, host, Rethinking Freedom. You want to watch this next episode that's coming out. It promises to be a banger. And she is the author of Kwanzaa, A Celebration. Welcome, sister.
Thank you.
The comrade, wow. He is the reason why we're here. His book, Manufacturing Hate, inspired the origin story of this particular program. But he also teaches African history at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. He holds degrees in journalism, economics from Columbia and Syracuse. He's also host of Black Star News on WBAI 95.8 FM, New York. Welcome, brother.
Asante, thank you.
Yes, as it's customary now, let's begin. The news where you're at. Let's begin with the system. I'm sure Texas has thrown us quite a curveball, and many curveballs. You go ahead.
Well, in Texas, we have canceled all our celebrations for Cesar Chavez.
Okay, rightly so.
I think that many of us who know the work that was done by him and the great Dolores Huerta and many others, in terms of farmers' rights, migrant farmer workers, definitely revere their impact on our history, on our culture.
Yeah.
But in recent days, with the article that was published by the New York Times revealing his revealing aspects of his life that we were not aware of, or what at least not widely aware of assaulting women and apparently even underage girls. That has led to, quote unquote, the cancellation of Cesar Chavez. His family has also put out some comments. I would say this, that I believe that we should repudiate this kind of activity, these actions, not just by him, but by everyone. And so when the elected officials in the state of Texas gave Ken Paxton a pass and did not impeach him for sexual assault and corruption and many other things, when we have such a strong MAGA cult in Texas that is still following Donald Trump with all of the accusations and him having been convicted 34 times and having been found guilty of sexual assault as well, and refusing to pay what he owes. When we still revere, or at least they still revere, George Washington and all the other, quote unquote, their founding fathers who also raped young women and girls. I just find that it's really rich that when it comes to Cesar Chavez, we are quick to do all the cancellations, but not for white men and their sins as well. And so I would say give all of them the same treatment, and that the deeper issue here is this notion of women as commodities, this overarching patriarchy, and how women are viewed within the patriarchy. And that is really the issue that should be addressed, because even within groups that are fighting for freedom, you still see these issues of marginalizing and mistreating women.
Okay. Yeah. Comrade?
Yeah, that really is the tragedy, the commodification of women as objects. As African people, we were all commodified. And then within that commodification, there was another subset super commodification of women. Yeah, I mean, it's so horrific that people that can do such great things can be abominable human beings at the same time. You know, he's certainly not the only or the last. So in terms of other news, the U.S. wants peace. You know, Trump wants out of the Iran war. So let's see if he's able to muzzle Netanyahu this coming week. I think the Iranian strategy of striking the Strait of Hormuz, and really depriving the global economy 20% of the fuel and energy, and not only fuel and energy, because the products go into fertilizer as well for farm production. That is really playing out the way the Iranians actually planned it. They actually planned it. The U.S. obviously did not, regardless of what the secretary, so-called Secretary of War, is saying. And then look at the irony. Now the U.S. lifts sanctions on Iranian oil, and they're saying, "Wait a minute, what are you doing?" So no. We're saying oil that is already at sea. So okay, even if it's at sea, if it's their oil, it means the money has to go to them, right? It's just remarkable. Totally unplanned war, which is why it just confirms the widely held notion that this was Netanyahu's war. The U.S. came in after the fact because Netanyahu left them with no choice. And that's a good reason why he was indicted by the ICC. Had they delivered him to the ICC, the U.S. would not be able to today. The second news is AfroMan. And Adesoji in the UK, if you don't know who AfroMan is, I suggest you Google AfroMan. This is a brother with a real afro who really knew how to take down corrupt police officers. You know, this rapper entertainer, they broke into his home. They ransacked his home, searching supposedly for drugs and illicit or whatever. They found nothing, but the best part of it was his video camera captured one of the police officers, the chief, pausing over, I don't know if it's mom or grandma's lemon cake.
£11 cake.
11-pound cake. So, you know, I love this guy. His psychology is perfect. He took that material and he flipped everything around. You know, ridiculed them, humiliated them. And one of them had to testify at the stand that, you know, I was getting hundreds of pound cakes sent to me. And that was supposedly harassment and defamatory. So obviously he won the case, and more power to AfroMan.
More power to AfroMan with 11-pound cake coming to a Walmart near you very soon for Thanksgiving.
Well, as he said,
you can't make these things up.
As he said, the guy took 2 looks at the pound cake and he wanted a slice.
He was sneaking a peek.
That's one of the best scenes I've ever seen. And he's holding a gun too. There's danger. There's danger on the right. There's a danger on the right, but there's pound cake on the left.
But then his trump card, if you will, of having the ex-wife of one of the officers as his defense witness.
And there was a part where...
Yeah, but there's a bigger lesson here, people. There's a bigger lesson here. There's a bigger lesson, people. We laugh, it's funny, but he used strategy. This is a brilliant guy, obviously.
Yeah.
There are many situations where we can also look back and use strategy. Never say, oh, they have overwhelming strength against me. No, think outside the box, which is what this brother did.
And then his trolling of America, because when he showed up in court in that suit,
all dressed up,
red, white, and blue, with the red, white, and blue sunglasses, the shoes, I said this man is, I too am America, right? We're talking about the exceptional America. Here I am, and I deserve justice under the law. Defamation, prove it. That was brilliant.
Well, the news over here is obviously Iran, and it's that Donald Trump has told.
It's not Kemi.
No.
Okay.
So it's it's Iran, and the fact that Donald Trump told the European leaders, well, I've done the best I could do. If you're the ones who use the Strait of Hormuz, go open it up yourself. It's like, okay. And seeking the help of NATO. He probably didn't read the fine print. NATO is a defensive part. It's not an attack dog. So NATO is not going to get involved. You know,
Did you use Reed and Trump in the same sentence?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Mr. President, I'm sure Mr. President can read, you know. So, and then obviously the passing of, when we saw it in the newspaper, well, we said there is no other debt that this man can seek to anymore. The debt of Mr. Mueller.
Yes.
And Mr. Mueller said when Mr. Mueller's passing was, when he was informed of Mr. Mueller's passing, his statement is not best repeated amongst polite company. It just shows the man is debased. Oh, well, yes, Tinubu's state visit is what it is. It's essentially a shakedown.
Tell people who Tinubu is.
Okay, so President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the president of Nigeria. He was given a state visit, which meant he slept in Buckingham Palace throughout the duration of his stay. He was a guest of King Charles. And they signed a couple of deals. The fine print of the deals are yet to dry up, but there is one key one, and it's to do with the issue of repatriation of prisoners. There is an edict here, which is if you're asked to leave the country, you can exhaust all legal means in order to stay. What his deal has effectively done is if the British government decide they want to throw you out, they can throw you out and Nigeria will readily receive you. So read into what you may. And so we'll get to know what the others are, but for now, it's we can't see the trees, because these countries are essentially, you have agency, but when you keep coming to them, state visit, all these things that make mockery of, and well, he's in fine company now. He's gotten a state visit, the same one Donald Trump got. So what else can we say? You know, that's the news in the UK. And so for today's stories, we first of all stay with the BBC, and this story comes on Zimbabwe, and it is that the headline reads, "Will Trump help or hinder Zimbabwe's white farmers in their compensation battle?" And the story was filed by Shinga Iyoka in Harare. It says, desperate aging white farmers whose land was seized during Robert Mugabe's rule more than 2 decades ago hope Donald Trump may be able to help them get billions of dollars in unpaid compensation owed to them by Zimbabwe's government. After all, some of them argue the US president intervened last year to fight for the rights of white farmers in neighboring South Africa, where he feels they're being persecuted because of their race, claims that have been widely discredited. But for me, this is the part that stands out. It's this. Where is it? Oh, yes. It is the ex-farmers. Where is it? Yeah. To this end, a Washington-based lobby group, Mercury Public Affairs LLC, which has ties to the Trump administration, has been engaged. It has been done by OB Project Management, a South African business consultancy firm that said it is representing the farmers. And one final part, it is that they're hoping Mr. Trump uses his leverage to get them to repeal the Zimbabwean Democratic Sidera the act, which specifically requires the US Treasury to vote against any new loans, credit, or debt relief for Zimbabwe from international financial organizations. If I'm reading that rightly, they want the government to go out and borrow money to pay people who have stolen the land in the first place in order to bankrupt Zimbabwe. What is your take, comrade?
Okay, so I mean, there are many interesting elements in this case.
Yeah.
The government in Zimbabwe is trying to be as clever as possible, as strategic as possible to survive.
Yeah.
So, and you know, they've shown some level of brilliance, I must say, actually. They've managed to improve Zimbabwe's economy.
Okay.
Because after they returned the land to Africans, as you know, the US, Britain, the European countries imposed this crippling sanction on Zimbabwe.
Correct.
I think at one time they printed a banknote for, I think it was $1 billion or something like that.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
So you had to go with wheelbarrows of money just to buy bread. So they effectively destroyed the economy. Right? So now, and obviously became like very personalized. Blair versus Mugabe. Britain versus Mugabe, very personalized.
Yeah.
So after they reluctantly eased Mugabe off the stage, you know, his former comrades, they started thinking of ways to revive the economy. And so long as the Europeans were the only ones who could speak to the international community, that was a non-starter. It would not happen. And they realized that. And it's not a matter of the injustice of the cause. It's totally unjust. Why should an African government even be contemplating compensation for Europeans whose ancestors stole the land from Africans, massacred Africans, killed some of their heroes in the 1890s, and then stole the land, right?
Yeah.
So that part of the history we know. But the new government under Mnangagwa decided that we cannot continue on this course. We are not strong enough.
Yeah.
We don't have the African unity to support us, right?
Yeah.
So let's try a different strategy. So, okay, how much do we owe? We can't pay you for the land. We can pay you for the infrastructure that you built and the improvement that you put in. So they came up with the sum, $3 billion. Okay. We agree, we'll pay, but we don't have the money. So take 1%. We'll pay you 1% up front, and then we'll give you notes that can, you know, interest-bearing notes that you can collect on in 10 years. And I think that was a brilliant strategy because most of them are in their 80s or 90s. So obviously they knew that these farmers would not live to collect the notes. And the way I'm reading the story, I don't think they can pass it on to their descendants. I don't think Otherwise, you would have stated that in the article. Yeah. So now they say, okay, we've agreed to pay you, but we don't have the money. So it sounds to me like even though Mercury claims it's representing the Europeans, I think Zimbabwe is not opposing that strategy. I think Zimbabwe is willing to go with whoever can pay the $3 billion. We can't pay it. If you can get Elon Musk to pay it off, fine. Then you would have your money, and then they would have to release all the sanctions against us, and we function. Yeah. So if you look at it strategically, I think it's a brilliant move on the part of Zimbabwe. And notwithstanding the fact that they should not even be contemplating paying a single dime to these Europeans. But it's either do that, find a strategy, or the economy would collapse as they were facing. And let me add another few points. Mercury wants to have its cake and eat it, and apparently it has been able to have its cake and eat it. It has represented the government of Zimbabwe in the past. Now it claims it's representing the white farmers. But here's the key thing. The white farmers, and I met them. I went to Zimbabwe in 2000, was it 2002, with Charles Barron. I organized a trip when I thought Britain was about to invade Zimbabwe under Blair to reverse the land thing.
Yeah.
So I met with a very dynamic council member named Charles Barron in New York. We invited Mugabe to come to City Hall, and he came and he addressed, and all these reporters came, the New York Post included, with their prejudiced notions, right?
Yeah.
After he finished his lecture, they did not ask him a single question. He broke everything down. I said, first of all, what you're writing about me, let me give you the facts. In my country, Europeans own 97% of the fertile land, right? We own the remainder. And on that parcel that we own, we are growing 70% of the food. Think about that, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we are trying to reverse, you know. So after he gave them the lecture from the history, not a single one did, because they came there asking, oh, so are you killing white farmers? Are you killing? The way he presented the history, in fact, they realized that they themselves would be doing the same thing probably to the white farmers, you know. All right, so I wanted to get that out. Over to you, sister.
Brothers and sisters, this is why it is such a blessing and an honor to be a part of this show and to be able to watch this show for those of you who are watching, because we get to sit at the feet of a living legend who has done the work, who is still doing the work, who is not just talking about what he's read about, but what he has actually lived. So, comrade, thank you so much for giving us that extra depth of insight into this issue.
No, thank you. And thank you for always also taking us to the next level, sister.
So,
no, for real.
You know, I want us to be really clear that this is not about white farmers. It's about land and power.
Yeah.
It is about—
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
It's about the unfinished business of colonial land theft.
Settler colonialism.
Absolutely.
And so while the article is talking about land seizures, right? The concept of seizing a thing, it's like you took it wrong, it was wrongfully taken. But understand that this was about redressing a colonial era land grab. And as Comrade has told us, they didn't just take land and displace people for whom we have no names. We're not talking about their lives, their records, their ancestors, how they're living, because now they're talking about, oh, some of these old people are getting aid from some group or the other. What happened to the Africans that you displaced? They not count.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
You know, so it's always—
they're 80, they're 90 years old.
We should always feel sympathy for you, the thief.
Yeah.
Who have been benefiting. We're not talking about how much profit you've made. No one is even asking you for restitution. We are talking about restoring you for land that you sold. So bring it down again, folk. Wherever you are right now, let's say the device that you have, someone comes and forcibly takes that device from you, uses the device, starts doing their podcast, they're making money, they're all of that. They've closed you completely out, maybe even killed you in the process. And then later, when the government says, nope, we're going to take that device back, then you're the victim and you need to be compensated. And how dare they take your land away from you? And again, let's talk about just we're not talking about they took 10% of the fertile land, or 20, or 30, or 40, or 50, or 6. Come on now. Anyway.
Crazy.
So ultimately, what's being debated today is not just compensation. Who owns Africa?
Yeah.
And who has legitimate claim to land, and whether colonial theft can be economically reversed, whether we can ever get reparations. So I say this because sometimes when I talk to my African-American brothers and sisters and I tell them I'm the ultimate African-American, I was born here and I was raised in Africa. So like I'm all of it, and I know that gets under people's skin. But ultimately, when we talk about reparations here, and then some people say, well, Africans didn't do anything to fight for us, and they didn't claim us, and they sold us, and all of that. What I love about this show is we're showing also what was happening on the continent of Africa. And if I myself am displaced, not making any excuses for the European accomplices, because we always have them, but understand that we were all under attack in different ways, and we need to know that history, and we need to show ourselves grace. The other thing that I wanted to raise really quickly is Zimbabwe being expected to pay 3.5 billion to these former white landowners.
Yep.
After, in cahoots with your white colonizers, you guys depressed and completely
shut down the economy.
Shut down the Zimbabwean economy. So what are you trying to say here? When you start talking about bringing in a third party like Elon Musk or anyone else, are you basically saying, oh, we're going to just sell Zimbabwe to these third parties, to these oligarchs? Yep. Because now they own literally the country. Because how do we ever get out of this debt? In addition to that 3.5 billion, understand that Zimbabwe supposedly owes another 23 billion to the IMF and the World Bank and so on and so forth. And again, if we go and break down some of these loans, we took loans supposedly for projects that they said were okay for us to have, right? Because they determined it's not social service.
They designed it. They designed it.
And then we paid that, we borrow the money and then pay the money back to their own firms. That's what China is doing with us as well. We borrow money from them for a project, and then we pay the money. I'm not even sure comes into our coffers. It goes to paying their own contractors who are part of the agreement to come and quote unquote build the things with no transfer of technology or knowledge. And so also you're beholden to them every time you have to maintain the thing, every time you need to make a repair, and you don't see any real value. I mean, we could go on, and we talked about this before. And so protecting property rights of settlers like we saw in South Africa, but ignoring the historical injustice against Africans is a big issue. And so I do appreciate what the Zimbabwean government is trying to do. I really hope that Africans, again, can unite and push back against these companies like Mercury, who really are just making money hand over fist, working both sides, if you will. And you see in the article, it talks about Susie Wiles, who is now the deputy chief of staff, right? For Trump.
No, chief of staff.
She's the chief of staff, sorry, because Miller is the deputy. She's the chief of staff, battling cancer and can't take time off because of the madman that she works for. I shouldn't actually call him a madman. He's not a madman, because that would be to give him a pass. But these people are using Africa as pawns. It's really just about how much money can we grab, how much power can we grab, how much control of the resources can we grab. And so there's so much more to this story, and I'm glad that every week, Adesoji, you bring these articles that allow us to read a little deeper into what is happening and to not just believe the propaganda that's being put out.
Yeah, I'll just
Sister threw a lot of good points. I want to just quickly add on to that. Mercury is also the PR firm for General Yoweri Museveni in Uganda, by the way. And then in terms of the narrative, think about it. So the article we just discussed, what is the narrative? What is the issue? Compensation for Europeans. We're not talking compensation for the people exterminated in the 1890s. We're not talking for compensation for the land seized from them, right? That's the whole irony about it, right? We're not talking about the fact that in 1980, when they signed the Lancaster Agreement to end the guerrilla war, Britain and the United States agreed to provide Zimbabwe with the money to compensate the white farmers.
Correct.
And then the British reneged. Yeah, I think it was under a Labour government, actually.
Yeah,
The Labour, I forget her post, a Labour minister said, listen, even my own family, I have Irish background. We suffered colonialism too. So why should we be paying Zimbabwe money? You know? So that is also left out of the narrative. But go ahead.
And then the way that they're continuing to punish Zimbabwe. And so you see these bills that are being introduced into the US Congress, and how policy is used to strangle people. We talked about that, not on this show, but on Rethinking Freedom, about what's happening in Cuba and the sanctions against Iran. All of these sanctions that are designed, again, to shift power, to immobilize people, to strip them of any agency, so that we really have not come out of colonialism. Yeah, I know we talk about colonialism, but we are still in the grips of it.
And sometimes we just mention, they mention sanctions in passing. There was an article in Lancet a couple of weeks ago where it said between 1972 and 2022, 38 million people have died across the world under US sanctions. Let that number sink in. So, again,
and you know what these sanctions, one of the things that they did was they prevented debt restructuring in Zimbabwe. So when we talk about the 23 billion, it actually isn't actually value added to Zimbabwe. A lot of it is just all the additional interest and penalties and the arrears that get ballooned.
Yeah.
So it's very
and for the entire African continent.
Yes, it's very punitive.
Africa owes more than $1 trillion to the outside world. You know, there's a very interesting YouTube video if people have time. I think if you do some of the things he said, you'll get the video of Julius Nyerere, the late president of Tanzania. He said, we borrow for the right to qualify to borrow more. And that's what Zimbabwe is trying to do. Zimbabwe is saying, if you can help us eliminate this $3 billion debt, we're going to qualify for more borrowing from the IMF and World Bank.
But that's what they do on an individual level. If you look at your credit score, why do I know this? Because I'm in this area and I was actually just looking at mine. And they'll tell you, oh, you make good money, you have low debt. To increase your credit score, you need to borrow more. And you need to borrow in a diversified way. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, sister.
To prove that
Thank you for putting it that way, because individuals can understand that, and that applies to all these dependency governments and so on. Yeah. And by the way, ironically, and people, if you have time, research Professor Richard Wolff. Go online, listen to YouTube. He discusses this. At the time that these African countries were getting fed all these loans and debts, domestically, the credit card companies were doing the same thing. People didn't used to be in debt like this. In the 60s or whatever, people used to go to some store, they see something they like, they buy it.
Buy now, pay later. So for the next story, we go to Radio France International, and it's it's a story we've sort of featured in dribs and drabs on here, and it's that ex-Belgian diplomat to stand trial over 1961 assassination of Patrice Lumumba. A Brussels court has ordered a 93-year-old former Belgian diplomat to stand trial over the 1961 killing of Congolese independence icon Patrice Lumumba. There's the man. So Belgian prosecutors have moved a step closer to putting a former senior official on trial over the 1961 killing of Congolese leader Patrice Lumumba in a case that many see as a landmark movement in Europe's reckoning with its colonial past. Etienne Davignon, now the only surviving Belgian amongst 10 individuals accused by Lumumba's family of involvement in the murder, is facing allegations of participation in war crimes. We all relieve Lumumba's grandson, Mady Lumumba, told reporters. Describing the development as historic, he added that Belgium was finally confronting its history. What's your take on the story?
All right. So it's been percolating for a couple of weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
So let me try to keep it brief because I know we have other. And also, I want to apologize that when we discuss this execution normally, and it's because, of course, Lumumba's name is big, we tend to forget his two compatriots who was also, they were executed alongside Lumumba.
Yeah.
And I apologize that I forget the name of one of them. The other one is Mpolo, of course.
The other one is Okito.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okito,
they were all very close to Patrice.
Yep.
Right. So this is a progression of what has been happening. It began with the return of the tooth, the police commissioner, when they when they murdered Patrice Lumumba. Before the body, while they were chopping up the body, he extracted 2 teeth and he cut off 4 fingers. And he took them to Belgium as souvenirs. So then I forget when he died. And then his daughter, in doing some interview, spoke about it. And I think he also spoke about it when he was still alive for a documentary. So at one point, the Lumumba's children initiated legal action. The police went and they recovered the only remaining parts of the body's parts that the commissioner had taken to Belgium was that 1 tooth. So that was returned in 2022, and it was given a state funeral and ceremonial burial in Congo. And on that occasion, the Belgian prime minister at the time gave an apology, sort of an apology, for the moral culpability for that murder. And then I think that opened the way for the 2024 decision by the appellate court in Belgium for the Métis, the descendants of Belgian men who had fathered children with Africans in Congo and then abandoned.
Correct. Yeah,
given to orphanage.
About 50,000 of
they
them.
Sued. Right, they sued. The suit was dismissed. But by the time they appealed, this new process with the tooth had already started. So that, I think, changed the political environment. Because on appeal, it was reversed and they won. So that, to me, opened the door to where we are today. The potential trial now of Etienne Davignon, who is the only survivor of the 10 officials that the Lumumba family had brought charges against, and the prosecutor had initiated the process. So I think it's significant. The lawyer said it's a gigantic victory, the lawyer for the Lumumba family, Christophe Marchand. But I think it's much bigger than he even actually realizes. Because now the family of Dedan Kemati can now sue the British government using similar, because I think it was like crimes against humanity. And I think Britain is also signatory. So they can actually shape their lawsuit similar to the way that this one was successful to at least to go to trial. We don't know how the outcome is going to be yet. Presumably, he would be convicted. Dedan Kemati, Felix Mumi, who was murdered by the French in Cameroon, and many other African nationalists who are just doing the right thing and fighting for their country's independence. And obviously, in this case, all of them would have been national leaders as well, who were brutally killed on behalf of empire because Avignon was not acting on his individual capacity. What did he know about Congo? What did he know about Lumumba? He had no personal beef with Lumumba. He was acting for the Belgian state. So the Dan Kemati's family go after Britain, go after the people who murdered Kemati, who murdered Felix Mumi, and many other African nationalists.
Sister.
So we all have different ideas of what happens in the quote unquote afterlife after we are done with our physical existence here on Earth. But I'm going to really have a bone to pick with God whenever it is I see God in that concept face to face. I know that there's God that resides within me. No,
Careful.
I say this because how is it that this man has been allowed to live till 93? You understand what I'm saying? We're looking at the pictures we're looking at the pictures of the grandchildren of Patrice Lumumba.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Thank God he had children early, and so his lineage continues. But his wife was deprived of a husband. His children were deprived of a father. The grandchildren never got to know the great man that they descend from. And this despot of a human being, because I'm not going to take away his humanity, has been allowed to live for 93 years and be exalted in all of these positions and revered. Lord, may your final days be whatever hell is, may you have it times 1,000. And in the afterlife, I implore all my ancestors to give you no rest.
They'll be waiting.
No rest. Patrice Lumumba, I'm expecting you to dissolve him as well, but one cell at a time. Okay, we don't want to become like our enemies.
But
so
sister, explain to people, and not everybody knows about the dissolve part. Sister,
they killed Patrice Lumumba, and we did have African accomplices who were part of this.
Tushombe.
And then they put his body in what would you call it? A barrel?
An acid bath,
An acid bath, and dissolved all the evidence. So we're talking about a 65-year-old crime scene. But this is how demonic these people are. That they felt they had the power over. Understand, Patrice Lumumba's death wasn't just about Patrice Lumumba. It was about, again, power and land and resources. How dare this African man rise up, and by the way, supported and backed and influenced by women, including Andre Bluin. But how dare he rise up and say, we will have a voice for ourselves. We will determine what our independence looks like. We will take control of our own destiny. And they could not abide by that. They could not stand that. And so it was him. It was Steve Biko. It was Thomas Sankara. It was Amilcar Cabral. Those are the ones we know their names. It was Nehanda Buya before that. It was, and we can go on and on and on and on, because we must impose our will on you. And so the manner of his death, the pictures they publicized of first of clearly beaten up, brutalized Lumumba, and then dissolving his body, and then taking a souvenir, which he kept. Like, these people keep their crimes. Like, Epstein recorded everything. These absolutely demonic human beings actually keep evidence of their crimes. But I want to bring in this part of it, because yes, he should stand trial, and I hope there's a civil lawsuit where Lumumba's grandchildren go after all of his finances and whatever
of course, without a doubt.
Family. Yes, we better get an economic part of it. But for us as Africans, I want to bring up this issue, because here on the United States of America soil, we saw this defilement of our bodies as well. We saw the cutting off of our limbs and keeping it as years. When we did Fannie Lou Hamer on Women and Resistance, and you guys need to be watching Women and Resistance on Wednesdays, she told the story of a man whose ear was cut off because he dared again to stand as a human being, as a man in his own right and his own freedom. They cut off, after they killed him, they cut off his ear and they put it in alcohol in a jar that they displayed
as a reminder,
publicly
yeah,
in a storefront window, a black man's ear. This is what they have done and what they continue to do.
Yeah.
So, but let us think about it for just a second. I know we got to go to the next story on just the spiritual aspect of this. How many of you today will be okay with not being able to bury your loved one? Because there's nothing to bury. What happens when we don't have that ritual? That continuation of ritual. A person is born, a person lives, and when they die, we have our rituals with which we send them on into the ancestral realm. What happens, and why do you think these people were so fixated on taking our skulls, taking our bones, taking all parts of our bodies and preserving it or doing whatever they did with it in their museums and all across Europe? You do not think there's a spiritual significance to this? So I'm grateful that the family at least got the tooth. I'm grateful Africa got his tooth, because it's more than Lumumba and his family. Yeah. And I hope that we go after these people. I don't care if they live to 101 and are senile. Go after them for everything they've done to us and send a message. And Trump and all of his folk, you all are next. You will have no rest. We will give you no rest.
Right. So I just want to say one thing in terms of the bodies, like the desecration of the bodies. You know, if you go historically, you look at the Belgian Congo under Leopold II.
Yeah, with False Republic.
And we have all those photos of Africans with severed limbs holding up the body parts, right?
Yeah.
To incentivize the production of more rubber. We have historically photographs of European colonizers with the heads, the severed heads of Africans mounted on stakes.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a single photo of Africans? Because the Africans had victories too. In many of the big battles, they won as well. Somebody Toure, for example, we won for 10 years or so until he was betrayed and then captured. But in all those victories, have you seen a single African posing with the decapitated head of a European who was defeated? When the Ethiopians defeated the invading Italian army at Adwa, March 1st, 1896, did you see them mount the heads of the 3,000 Italian soldiers they killed? So I'm glad you narrowed in and focused on that issue of the desecration of the body. Even the bodies of enemies, we don't desecrate.
Yeah, it's, as they would say, exterminate all brutes, no humans involved. So yes, for them, it's part of the course. They don't really care. For one, they don't even see you as human. You're less than. So
well, we had better care.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And I'm so proud of the Lumumba family for continuing this fight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thinking of memories, we go to The Guardian for our next story. I don't know what to even say of this. Okay, so the story reads, "The world's memory, while Nigeria is burying its history under a mountain in the Svalbard." So this is the North Pole. It is the first African country to deposit data in the Arctic World Archive, a storage facility designed to preserve records of everything from cultural practices to historical events. So the story reads, "A decommissioned coal mine near the North Pole is the last place you will expect to find indigenous stories from rural Nigeria, but deep below the Arctic permafrost of Svalbard, a storage unit contains a cache of cultural and literal records from the West African country. The Arctic World Archive is a data storage unit where organizations and individuals can deposit records kept on specialist digitized film called The Piggy that lasts up to 2,000 years on February 27, Nigeria became the first African country to place archives at the facilities 300 meters below a mountain where cold, dark, dry conditions are perfect for preservation. What do you think of this story? Before I say my thoughts, which are not very, very colorful.
All right. So obviously, I think it's very insane. It in an era when Africans are fighting to recover our knowledge, our artifacts, our historical products, our technological, our intellectual properties, our artifacts from the museums where they now reside, either in the storage facilities or on display.
Yeah.
We are fighting to recover that, and you are willingly bringing our knowledge to them. Are you insane? You know, completely preposterous. Okay, that's on one level. On another level, at least the CIA, when they went to all these African countries, they were not there just to undermine governments, right? They were there to also clandestinely get the information, the DNA makeup of the country, as much information as they can get. They would pay for it. They would poison for it sometimes. They would kill for it. And here you are willingly collecting it and bringing it to Europeans. Are you insane again? On another level, we criticize the traditional rulers, the elders, the chiefs, the monarchs, who allegedly signed away by making treaty. How can you call it a treaty when one side does not know what is being done? I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think that could count as a quote-unquote treaty, right? Supposedly signed treaties with Europeans and gave away Africa or African lands. And then we say, okay, they were not schooled, they were not knowledgeable, they were actually very intelligent. And yet they did that. And here you are, highly educated, you're professors, some of you, you're participating willingly in collecting our archive and sending it to Europe for keep. Are you crazy? On many levels, it's just so confounding. You're telling me that, okay, maybe there's going to be an apocalypse in the future. Humanity may have to start again from scratch. We need some knowledge base if we survive, right? And you want Africa to be part of that. You're telling me there are no deep mountain shafts in Africa where you could create this same kind of storage facility in South Africa, which has been mining for what? Going on 3 centuries now?
Correct.
I just can't, you know, I can't understand the story. I can understand why Europeans would want that, right? Because they've been stealing not only the physical Africans historically, but the knowledge base as well. So I understand that part. But our willing participation in the 21st century, I mean, I knew we had many problems, my friend. I knew we really did. But now I know it's much worse than I realized it was.
Sister, be gentle.
I'm just sad. Because like Comrade said, this is about our collective memories, right? This is about understanding who we are and then who has control over that. And we're still in a struggle to go and get back so much that has been stolen from us. But this is also, I'm in my head, I'm just hearing people like Ngugi wa Thiong'o and oh God, how can I forget? Ayikwa Ama. Just speaking about the colonization, or even Moshere Mugo, speaking about the colonization of the African mind. Because clearly my Igbo brothers and sisters and all the names that I saw there seemed to be Igbo names. I speak Igbo fluently. They really are very proud of themselves and of the role that they are playing. But I'm just thinking, who controls this archive? And which Nigerian or African is going into this deep mountain in on the North Pole to finally retrieve it. So if you watch any of those apocalypse movies, right? I'm just thinking we're trying to survive. Remember, did you read the part of the article where they said they also have 1 million seeds buried there?
Yeah. There's a global seed bank. Yeah.
There's something that colonization has done to our minds, and that is that it has almost seized our ability to imagine anything beyond what white people tell us is possible. Because,
I agree.
Like Comrade was saying.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that.
You are absolutely correct in saying we do need to preserve our memories and our history. But you couldn't find anywhere in Africa. We can't come together with all these resources and stuff that we have. We couldn't figure out a way to do that on our own continent and have control over it. So this is about, again, we've talked about control of land. Now we're talking about control of African memory. And then here's the deal, like with all these data deals that we're making, whoever collects the data gets to figure out how they want to synthesize it, gets to determine what they now give back to you. And so at this point, being given back to you, you can't even fight back because you don't even have the original resources, the original sources.
Absolutely.
To say, oh no, this is a wrong interpretation.
Yep.
You will forever
that is the curious part.
Yes, you'll forever be beholden to their interpretation of who you are and what you are about. So the contradiction of African history, African culture, African knowledge being preserved not in Africa, not in an African controlled infrastructure, but again, these African accomplices who often mean well in their colonized minds, wholeheartedly selling us off. And my thing, what did they get for this? Or they're just doing this out of the kindness of their hearts?
You're actually paying to put it there.
Jesus. Let me call Jesus, not the white Jesus, though, the one that existed before, the one that existed in our concept, which is why we thought when they brought their or distorted the spirituality we had before, we thought we were talking about the same God, but their God is very different. So this is, again, a continuation of colonial violence, folk. We've never left that topic. We have never left that topic because if we cannot protect and project our own narrative, then we're always beholden to somebody else's analysis of who we are. And then you can never win. And then you can never be free because you're always, always, always something that has been created by somebody else.
Yes. Before we go to the final story, if you're finding value with the discussion, our weekly discussion, please consider subscribing to the channel, becoming a member of the community. It will help to keep the lights on, as it were. And yes, let's go to the final story, which is from the Daily Telegraph, the British, and it's that Sky News. Wow. Which was quite a shocker for me when I read it. It's the Sky News is cutting ties with UAE channel. Broadcaster accused, which is the UAE channel, accused of propaganda and whitewashing atrocities committed by Sudanese militia. There is 2 levels to this. Sky is preparing to pull the plug on this controversial news joint venture with the United Arab Emirates after the channel was accused of propaganda and genocide denial. This is the key part. Okay, so this is the owner of the sister station that is tied with the channel. Sheikh Mansour is the owner of Manchester City, which is a football club in the UK. And where is the part that, so Sky News Arabia initially set out to bring the highest international standard to coverage of the Middle East. But UK-based former Sky executives told the Telegraph in November that the channel has become a mouthpiece for the UAE rulers. One said in an editorial board meant to monitor coverage had no real power as the channel was owned by the UAE Vice President Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed. Sky News Arabia generated international controversy last year in reporting on the RSF capture of El Fasher, the capital of Darfur state. In February, a UN fact-finding mission reported an intent to commit genocide was the only reasonable inference from the pattern of rape, murder, and ethnic cleansing. But Sky News Arabia sent a reporter to the scene who was married to a senior official. This lady here, Tasbih Mubarak Katir, was filmed hugging a female RSF commander who had urged fighters to rape Darfuri women, telling her, "We are with you." She then filed reports claiming there was no evidence of atrocities documented by the satellite imagery or media reports gathered from those who managed to flee. So, again, this is the media sort of manufacturing consent. So let's go with Brother Milton. Your thoughts first.
Okay. So there are many layers of stories here. I think the most important one actually is not so much about what they're trying to do in Darfur, which is to whitewash the United Arab Emirates' role in the genocide by the RSF, right? The so-called Rapid Support Force.
Yep.
Right. But the bigger story is that the United Arab Emirates, right?
Mm-hmm.
A tiny country with a lot of resources, knows the importance of information and narrative.
Correct.
Who sets the narrative? Who tells the story?
Yeah.
And that is why they're buying interest in these previously European majority-owned media outlets.
Okay. Yeah, correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is not the only outlet they're doing. And, you know, if you look at those Gulf states, they created Al Jazeera into a global, impactful media outlet, correct?
That's the case, yes.
So you have a continent of 1.5 billion Africans, our beloved continent. And all those leaders never thought that they should also be intervening in some of these media outlets. Even in this country, we have people that buy modest shares into companies that are doing wrong things so that they can have impact. They can go to these annual meetings and intervene and start influencing, correct? So that is the biggest story that I wanted us to get out first. Because at the end of the day, you are responsible for protecting yourself and your interests. And we're not playing on that level. So specifically to this story, it's not that surprising that the UAE, which has come under a lot of pressure now because it's quite obvious that they're the ones who are financing this. This is not a liberation army. This is a terrorist army massacring Africans using the religious/racial, ethnic, racist component to annihilate Africans in this very bloody war that is going on in Sudan. And now it is so obviously shameful that Sky News is also feeling the heat. And that is why Sky News wants to sever the relationships with IMI, which is the UAE government media company that it was negotiating this 50-50 partnership with, you know, because the massacre, the genocide has been so horrendous, they don't want it to taint their brand. But it's not like they didn't know about it. This thing has been going on, going on 3 years now. You didn't know about it. Now it's the publicity that is bringing them to shame. And that's why they want to sever this relationship now.
Sister.
Anyone ever been in a relationship?
Wait, actually, sorry.
Go ahead.
Let me just add one other thing. One thing. So apparently the ownership also has an ownership stake or owns a British soccer team or football team, as you call it.
Yes. Manchester City.
That should be a target. That should be a target for protest. Yep. You know, surprise, it's not been a target for protest for his role in the genocide in Sudan. Go ahead. After you, Cesar.
It has not been a target because there are no humans involved.
Yeah.
By the way, I believe over this weekend, they no one is claiming responsibility, but there was another attack on a hospital in Darfur with obviously patients killed, and then a couple of nurses and a doctor as well. So the killing continues. I'm going to shift a little bit in how I want to look at this article because, Comrade Milton, you've covered everything that I would have said more directly with the article. I want to bring up the idea of human sacrifice. And I bring it up in the sense that Lebanon, 1,300 people killed. Palestine, 72,000 people killed and plus. Iran, 1,300 plus climbing. Darfur, I don't know how many millions we're in. Congo, we're in the millions. It's as if Epstein files. We don't know how many people were killed, how many babies were killed.
Yeah.
It's as if there is this human sacrifice happening right in front of us. But because we don't use that terminology with it, it's just these expendable deaths. But it's literally like, when we talk about certain spiritual forms, you'll say, oh, they sacrifice the goat, or they sacrifice, go back to the Bible, they sacrifice different animals. But then we talk about, oh, this black magic, because, you want to make black negative, or the human sacrifice. But in order to attain wealth, riches, power, is that not what is happening on a global level? How many have been killed in Ukraine?
Yep.
How many have been killed in all of this? How many, forget the bombs, not that we can, but if we put to the side the bombs and the bullets and all of that, let's talk about the number of displaced people dying from hunger. We're now in the 30-something millions. And all of this for what? For a handful of people who run all of these corporations, whether we're talking about Sky News or now in the United States, where one entity is going to own 80% of the radio news waves. It's all the concentration of power in the hands of a very few people, and it doesn't matter how many human beings we sacrifice for power. And so whether it's Sky News, whether it's the UAE, please, anytime you're making deals with these entities, you know that if you're in those countries, you have no autonomy. If you say anything out of line, the government can disappear you, can kill you, and it's legal. So of course, any news outlet that you go into partnership with, if those journalists want to live, if they want their families to live, they better give the propaganda from the government. We're seeing it even in quote unquote America, home of the free, land of land of the free, home of the brave. Although Connie Luhamer says it's home of the tree, land of the grave. We're seeing it here where journalists here are afraid to speak truth.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to lose their jobs. We saw it in the Virgin Islands where the sister, and oh my God, someone maybe look up her name and put it in the chat. The sister who was going to prosecute these Epstein crimes in the Virgin Islands has disappeared. She made a statement and then she's gone. No, her family doesn't know where she is. And so for us to feign any kind of surprise, or Sky News, oh, we didn't know UAE would do this, or that, yes, they would tell a story that would make them look good. Who are we lying to? But again, I'm not putting my hopes on people who want to annihilate me. My question is, what are we going to do? And yesterday I was having a conversation with someone who said, she didn't know me. We were at a women's event or whatever, and she's trying to make small talk. And she said, oh, so what do you do? And I just said, I'm an attorney. Sometimes I'm a little introverted and I want to talk. And she's like, oh, so I guess you're having to be very politically correct in these times. And at that point, I did wake up and I said, nope. In these times, more than ever, we need to speak truth to power, because our silence will not save us. And you could see she just kind of moved back a little bit. I was like, yeah, you should have left me alone.
Yeah, don't poke the bear.
Yeah, so no.
No, but it's true.
For us to speak up, and Africans, we have to tell our own stories again, and don't go put it in storage with the people who want to get rid of you. Because here's the other thing they're going to do. So you go and put all of that stuff in. They extract the knowledge of your people. He's talking about the Insibidi Institute. For those of us who are in Nubia and learning from Dr. Mario Beatty, we're talking about Medunecha. But you should go and look up Insibidi. Insibidi is also a form of ancient writing amongst the Igbos, where there is a lot of knowledge and wisdom that is hidden. And he's saying they're part of the Insibidi Institute, and they're putting that information in there. Here's what they'll do. They'll extract your information, then destroy any appearance that you were involved, and turn around and say, Africans contributed nothing to world civilization. Just like they're doing right now.
Yep.
So we gotta tell our own stories. Okay. I know you want to keep this professional. I'm so sorry, Adesoji, but I'm not sorry.
Comrade, any final thoughts?
Oh, no, I mean, I'm glad we have this platform. I look forward to our weekly discussions, because I know nowhere else do we get this kind of breakdown and put it in the broader context. So, a luta continua.
Yes, Victory Aseta. And yes, with that, we've come to the end of this week's episode of African News Review. Until next week, if this is your first time here, do like, share, subscribe, do all the good stuff. And yes, donate.
It costs money to do this. Donate, carrying the burden. Yeah. Donate, please.
So yes. Any little helps, as they say. On Wednesday, we are looking at Queen Mother More on Women and Resistance, where Sister Aya goes into character and help us live and speak to our ancestors. And so this week, it's going to be the turn of Queen Mother More. So that's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until next week, it's good night and God bless.